Namaskar, namaskar, namaskar. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. So, a Sunday morning here in India and in different parts of the world, different timings, but we are all here for living forward. And I am excited. I'm excited because I'm going to meet a very, very dear friend and a person who's inspired me. I've known him for a little bit, but the way he has handled himself, and I have there was a time, some months back when I had asked him about what he does, and what he told me then, it seemed so futuristic. And then in today's day and age, it seems that he was ahead of the curve, and he was right at the cusp of it. So it's my absolute pleasure to introduce to you all Nishchae Suri, President Asia Pac, Middle East and Africa with EdCast, and without much further ado, over to you, Nishchae.
Namaskaram.
Namaskaram, namaskaram, namaskaram. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much, Ashish. It seems like a mutual admiration club. I've been a big fan of your work, and it's an absolute privilege for me to share this time and space with you on this screen.
Fantastic. This is, and in fact, as I was mentioning, Nishchae, that when I met you, and I remember, I think I was sitting in this room itself when we were chatting, when I asked you about EdCast, and I tell you, as you were describing what you do at EdCast, it seemed so sci-fi to me. Seriously, it seemed so sci-fi to me. I kept nodding. I said, yeah. I remember I had a wonderful lunch with you. And then I just kept nodding. I said, whoa, I mean, like, will this kind of a thing be useful in India? So, and just fast forward a few months and look where we are. And the futuristic has become present.
Well, the future belongs to the brave, Ashish. And the founding team of EdCast, I guess, a couple of years ago, were brave enough and bold enough to venture into an area that was unexplored at that stage, but recognized that there were symptoms of a bigger problem specific to people not being motivated enough to learn. And clearly so, how could you actually change the paradigm for giving the power to every learner to fulfill his or her dreams and make learning personal, make learning more democratic, allow for free flow of information and knowledge, which is, I guess, should be a birthright, a constitutional right for every single human being.
Yeah. I consider for a moment, Nishchae, in fact, it was the topic that we have chosen for today.
I'm curious. Yes, and well, curiosity may have indeed killed the cat, but I think it is a life-saving human mental capacity because it beckons us to really experiment, explore, go head-on with what is, with expectancy rather than with fear, despair. And clearly so, in times of ambiguity where you don't know what to do, how quickly can you actually solve for that? To elevate yourself to a higher state of consciousness.
I love that.
To solve the problems that we're currently facing.
And Nishchae, for me, as you said that, even as we are talking about democratization, it kind of really spreading wide. For me, it stems from that spirit of curiosity, which how will it be if we get that? It is not just limited to the kids who are in school or in college or who are kind of somehow working to get their first job. Imagine if it is something which is part and parcel of our life.
Yeah, so, childlike curiosity. We always talk about a child who is curious and intrigued and wants to learn more and discover. And unfortunately, the adult brain doesn't allow for that because the what if comes into being. And many a times it is our own inhibitions, our fear of going into the unknown that limits our capacities. But clearly so, right? Learning agility, which is a very important competence or trait for human beings that need to succeed and sustain themselves. Therefore, I talk about not only being a better version of yourself every single day, but now the current environment actually demands a different version of yourself because the rules of the game have changed.
Absolutely. And it's actually a carrot and stick. So if carrot be that I want to, I want to grow, a stick is that if you want to stay relevant, if you're still wantable, if you're still employable, if you are somebody who people may say that, hey, listen, I want this guy for that job. So do you think that this is now really the spirit of learning? Now it's not so much a luxury or so much as a what should I say, an effervescent thought, as much as it is a reality.
It is a burning platform today, right? Necessity. Clearly so, I guess it isn't a choice, an option any longer. You need to act now and urgently if you want to future-proof yourself. And the future is seemingly unaddressable in many ways. You don't know what's going to come your way, and it changes by the minute, by the hour.
I love that.
And individuals must take that responsibility upon themselves. I think for the most in the past, they've relied on the education system or on the organization to fulfill that requirement. And more we are finding that individuals, there is a yearning curve, which means they want to learn.
Yeah.
The question is, can we create a conducive environment for them to be able to exercise that choice and not come in the way of the learner, but actually get out of the way of the learner?
Yeah. In fact, it's so interesting, and I just want to kind of, growing up in Delhi in the 80s, anybody who took tuitions was considered a failure. So bad that he has to take tuitions. So chup ke, people used to hide and take tuitions. Now tuitions is something which you flaunt. You also flaunt. Yeah, we're doing five tuitions. Itne tuitions kar raha hamara bacha. Now consider for me, what I have discovered, and thanks to the stuff which is available now, each of us now have the opportunity to continue education. And as you said, that since the future is the unknown, we better stay at a point where we are at least willing to know what may hit us or how we may position ourselves in this new.
It's interesting you bring that up, Ashish, because the journey begins with self, right? It's about awareness and self-awareness, about mindfulness, about being aware of the environment, being aware of your own beliefs or your own strengths, your own inadequacies. This is a great time to do that self-reflection. So create the awareness, because the awareness generates a willingness and an acceptance. The acceptance then motivates you and creates that burning platform to act. Because if you don't take action,
I just want you to hold this beautiful point. So you first become aware of your strengths and your inadequacies. Accept it. Basis that, now act. Now here there is no third person coming and saying, hey, listen, I felt. No, you know it. You know exactly what's happening. Great, please go on.
And the action then leads to a few role models, because we always look for those heroes and heroines, right? You come from that world. We look up to them. So they become advocates. And leaders in organizations must role model, must play the role of the ambassador and be strong advocates for the brand of learning, for the benefits that it creates. Because clearly everybody needs help. I mean, we all need help, seek guidance, and we should make that available in the environment that we operate in. It's the imperfect leader. We all have our inadequacies. We all need help. The question is, how prepared are we? How willing are we to act? And the enablement. Equally so is the resources. I mean, we understand the plight of our country, that clearly, even if you have the willingness, you may not have the ability. Therefore, governments, associations, organizations all playing a part in addition to the individual, and supporting this drive and this need that is being expressed by every individual learner.
Yeah, and just want to just take a step back from this, and I will come to this. Is that consider for a moment, Nishchai, that at this point, people are experiencing that gap that they see between themselves and that leader, as you said, that leader who inspires them. That gap is bridgeable by me. So earlier, we had completed our education. We had either done the IIT IIMs or not done the IIT IIM, and then you are done
Right.
for. So the rest of the life was spent ruining that I could have, but didn't work out or whatever. But now you see someone who is really up there and who probably has all the credentials which you do not have up till now. But don't you see that in this milieu where we are at this moment, that gap is bridgeable? It's not a game over.
Well, it was never game over in my view. At least that's my point. That everything is a level playing field at the end of the day, and you have access, right? So you have means. We have number of examples that weren't privileged enough to go to the IIMs or one of the top institutes, but through hard work, conviction, belief, courage, there are no shortcuts in life, and
Sure.
people have been very successful. And learning is not a destination; it is a journey. So if you take every day with an opportunity of being a better person, being a better version of yourself, learning something new, no learning goes for waste.
Yeah.
Right? It's the ability to learn not only from your education, but from your experience, from your exposure, from every interaction. The
Exactly.
question is, do you look for it? Because what you look for, you find.
Yeah.
And a lot of individuals, unfortunately, have been operating with a deficit mindedness.
Hmm.
So it's not what you don't have, it's what you have, and you must play to your strength. You can't be the perfect human being. It's impossible.
Sure.
So how do we leverage those strengths that we have and are born with and apply those gifts in the environment towards our purpose? So have a plan. Clearly, I think you must work with a plan, even though that plan may change tomorrow.
Sure. Absolutely.
Script it. Be willing
To rewrite it.
to rewrite it.
Sure.
Be willing to put in the hard work to acquire those skills and knowledge that make your goals possible. Be willing to ensure that wherever there is feedback being given to you through the environment that you operate in, you're paying attention, you're an attentive listener, and are acting upon it. Now,
Awesome.
it's easier said than done. This seems
Sure.
common sense, but very uncommonly applied.
Yeah. And here is where it's like, what you said is, what stops us from taking feedback is again us. There's something which we said that we are not okay with. Now, here is where I want to ask you about, where does EdCast come in here? And what have you been doing to, this level playing field? See, when I was saying earlier that some people have missed out on educating themselves the way they may have wanted to. I have
Sure.
always felt, yes, for me, in your mind, you say, oh yeah, if only I could have. Now we know in the larger game, we see in others that a game is not over. But we, at many a times for ourselves, we think that the game is over. So when I see players like you coming out and offering something, you're giving me hope in spite of me having, so to say, fulfilled my formal education. So can you please tell us that how people like you, people who kind of saw something, the possibility of this, what are you offering to the world at this point?
So at EdCast, we are driven by uh, wanting to create a world where every individual can fulfill his or her dreams. And the route to that is to be an everyday learner, to create this curiosity of learning, this, the habits of an everyday learner,
Mm.
with the objective that how do you break down these barriers that exist? how can you make knowledge more free-flowing and accessible with speed? I mean, it's also mirrored to the environment that we exist in, right? So
In fact,
clearly technology.
Yeah. So this is an interesting one, Nishchae. So not only are you making things available, but you're also making things available which are relevant at this time.
Absolutely.
So you're going for example, remember we used to go to universities and do some courses like a BA honors or a political science honors without knowing what use is that. Now, suddenly, aren't you people actually offering people things that are actually relevant for people? Could be.
Well, learning, I mean, to create and generate that interest of the learner begins with relevance, right? And that's the first golden word, is it relevant for me? The second golden word is application, and the third golden word is impact. Because you must see benefits. Otherwise, how do you keep your interest and motivation going?
What's in it for me? What's in it for me? I have to get it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, if I were to kind of break down where this knowledge and information resides, and it resides in certain containers, which I'd like to call out. The first is there's a lot of good information and knowledge which is tacit within an organization, right? The people, through their experience, haven't been able to, it's not codified and it's not shareable in that sense, scalable. So how can you actually tap that tacit knowledge, that wealth of experience which resides within an organization, and make that freely available to one and all? The second content container is this entire world of the internet, but you can get lost. The question is, can you actually extract what is relevant and make that consumable? And we call that micro learning, which actually then generates that interest on an ongoing basis. So if I want to learn about writing a good script, how does, what constitutes that? Then on a daily basis, if that were my learning goal, on a daily basis, EdCast would actually extract the most relevant and high quality pieces of information and make that available to me on my mobile. So that's the other reality we're mirroring with, that, we all spend a lot of our time on the mobile phone. And that's why it's called a smartphone. So clearly, if I'm using that mobile for taking photographs and, making presentations, and why can't I also use that as a medium for learning? And that helps the learner, because the learner today is on the go, wants to learn at his or her time and convenience. The other big container is, of course, all these content premium providers. So that's the third so-called container, be it Udemy or Udacity or LinkedIn Learning, whichever be the case. The fourth is information that resides in a knowledge management system within an organization. So we've all seen the failure of knowledge management systems not working. And, you can blame the technology or you can blame discipline and habit. But clearly, so that's the other area. And the fifth is, all this compliance-led training. And for the most in organizations, there's been a compliance-led culture of learning, which means, this is what you must learn. And people would need to complete that to continue their employment within an organization. But in doing so, I think what has happened is, number one, the spirit of the learner has been broken and damaged. And what has not helped either is that the environment or the learning ecosystem within an organization is fragmented, broken, and, if I may take the liberty, toxic to a certain extent.
So, Nishchae, it's so interesting how the first container and the last one that you mentioned, how they are so interestingly related, as I was listening to you. Consider
and what we've been able to do, Ashish, just to add. So while all this world of knowledge exists, right? Content is king, but context is the kingdom. So what we do is aggregate all this knowledge and personalize it with a high level of user interface and experience that we provide to the learner, that keeps the learner motivated in a goal-oriented way to continue to learn, to fulfill their goals and ambitions.
Wonderful, wonderful. So as I was saying, Nishchae, the first point that you raised about the knowledge which is there in the organization, which I would very much liken to the wisdom which is there over the years, the culture which has been there. Now, when there is the toxicity which kind of comes in, it doesn't allow that to be shared. It becomes like it's mine. I will not give up with it. In fact, that person is going to go away with it. All right. Or the new person is not able to engage with the one who's passing away. So that thing is lost. And something which really got me, thinking, even as you were talking about this, that in that final piece, just imagine if that person, if this learning way is actually nurturing that person's learning spirit rather than beating him down, and really allowing that person to say that, hey, listen, I am one of many who are learning. And for me, rather than making it a solitary thing, just some individuals who are trying to learn and somebody else, gossiping about them, really a realm in which we get that each one of us has this amazing opportunity since we are alive. And that's what really inspired me, Nishchae, because we are alive, my friend. And this future we do not know anything about. But guess what? Nobody ever knew the future except for the guy who thought he knew, with this as a soothsayer. But imagine if we are open to learning and if there is an environment of it. So not just can we learn new, what I liken it to, how will it be if you can add learning to experience? So there is the existing experience, and to that, right from the top till any place, there is an ongoing, there's an ongoing churning of knowledge. And here comes my question to you, is that, do you think that when there are learning opportunities like that, this is an opportunity for people to actually explore multi-dimensionalness of themselves?
It's an interesting question because when you talk about multi-dimensional, number one, it's different modalities of learning.
Yep.
The other is also addressing different aspects of the human being, right? Mental well-being, emotional well-being, physical well-being. And I see that learning actually during these times, especially, which I believe is extremely critical for all the reasons that we've spoken of, plays a foundational role in building psychological capital.
Can you please repeat that line?
It plays a foundational role in building psychological capital. What we are currently struggling with, Ashish, is this fear of failure, right? Big fear of failure. And we all have these emotions all bottled up. The other is doubt of intention. So clearly, am I the victim? Is there a conspiracy against me? And the third, which is really worry of financial security, because we all know that we have to earn money to sustain ourselves.
Absolutely.
Now, how we can combat that and build this confidence and optimism is through capability. It plays a very, very important role, because when you have the capability, you can actually combat these emotions very successfully. So multi-dimensional from the standpoint of build emotional well-being, mental well-being, and during these times, you also know, right? I'm going to give a simple example that we all knew that going to the gym and keeping fit was necessary to remain productive in every way. But our discipline was very weak, and very few people would actually keep fit. Now you see a lot more people actually paying attention to their fitness because there is a fear of the pandemic. So they are investing in physical fitness. Equally so, we are seeing that a majority of learners are taking the responsibility to ensure their learning fitness. So learning fitness or learning health, as I refer to it,
Wow.
is an equally important construct that can keep your emotional well-being, mental well-being in check. And of course, you complement that with physical well-being, and you're more prepared and ready to take on the future.
In fact, knowing you, seeing you, you have repositioned and repurposed yourself. You know, that the future at some point back was something else when you were purely, you were never purely in anything, but I'm saying that still, you've been teaching at some point, but you were mainly in HR, and then you take on a new role. Can you tell me, and that there is, I see a very interesting connect, something which you mentioned, that everything that you've learned, it comes of some use. Can you just share that, how that shift of yours from HR to where you are today, how nuggets which you had put into your life early on, how they played a role?
So, Ashish, my DNA is such that number one, I put my hand up for anything new and challenging. And I've done that from a very early stage in my careers, and I was given the opportunity. To be fair, if you're given that opportunity and you feel confident in that environment, you are willing to take that risk, right, and experiment. Um, right through, I kind of renewed myself on an ongoing basis.
I love it.
Uh,
Renewed myself. I love it, Mr. Suri.
uh,
I love it.
it's again, I think in school, and I think the journey really began there. We were taught to be very self-aware and recognize our strengths and what motivates us, and that's been a central theme right through for me. I know my inadequacies and I know my strengths,
Got
and I
it.
play with my strengths to address some of the inadequacies so that they don't become obvious and come in the way. Now, through this
I
journey, I
just
mean,
love this. I just love this. I just want us to just go on this. So what you're talking about is that you play with your strengths such that your inadequacies don't actually become a stop for you.
absolutely. And
Beautiful. So
uh,
just imagine. Wonderful.
for
Loved it.
me, for me, excellence is a better teacher than mediocrity. So this hunger and drive to continually improve and be a better version has actually, been my source of motivation. What I've also seen, and I've been very, very fortunate, is to have a very strong support group. And, when I talk about
Mm.
a support group, you should always know that your success is never yours alone. And you have many people to thank for that: my mentors, my leaders, my team. And I wouldn't be where I am today if it weren't for them and their contribution, if they didn't hold my hand equally so
Sure.
as I held theirs. So uh, I got into education because I was always motivated to be a teacher, but never could live that dream. Uh, and there was an opportunity that came my way to found this new age business school, which is called School of Inspired Leadership. And I
Wow.
was invited in by a set of philanthropists and industry leaders to join them in that experiment. So I did teach and set up a business school, and that led to, I think that was the best investment that I could have made in myself, to truly understand the world of education more closely, to understand the millennials, because I was in class with them and I understood the future generation a lot better. And I guess my love for learning and leadership began there, wherein I became a student of the subject. And
Even while you were teaching, you became a student of it.
you're always a student, and you must
Lovely.
believe that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that will keep your quest and hunger to learn every single day alive. The spirit of curiosity.
Yeah, it again comes back. But there's something which you mentioned a little bit back, and which I thought read. When you talk of mentors, when you talk of, and right at the beginning, you spoke of certain leaders that you look up to. And you also spoke of that you are very lucky that you got some opportunities. I want you to just consider for a moment, and there's something that, you know, we choose whom we want to be inspired by. All right.
Sure.
And there is
Yeah.
a whole choice that where it begins. So what is it that you're inspired by? And I make a very firm distinction between things that I'm aspiring for, and people and things that I'm inspired by. And I have always seen that if I have an aspiration, then it has it has a shelf life. You either do it or don't. But inspiration is something very interesting, that you may be inspired by a spacewalk and go and write a book. So it is that inspiration which gives us the space to play big, and that's what I heard in what you said. And the other part which I really take away very beautifully, which you mentioned just now, is your ability to understand. Even while you were teaching the millennials, you were also observing them. It's a whole lot like we actors do. So even when we are in the midst of something, we're also observing those guys whom we are performing for. So here is my question. Did you see yourself in this present role reconstituting your existing to create something amazingly new for yourself as part of your continuous newness?
Well, so I moved from a very large organization to begin with. I came from KPMG, so it was a large organization, very complex, a lot of people, to a smaller organization now. Well, not a startup, but perhaps a scale up. And there's always an adjustment one has to make when you move in terms of mindset as well as in terms of abilities as you take on something new, right? It was the coming together of two areas that I believe are changing the world today and will continue to transform the world. One, this entire discipline of learning, which I had invested myself in very, very strongly over the last decade. And the other, which is technology. It was marrying these two forces together to make learning more scalable, more sustainable, agile, intuitive, clearly making known the possibility of using technology to serve a cause that is considered as a transformation lever across the world by CEOs, by governments, by, you can just see it, where governments are paying so much more attention to this entire aspect of skill development.
Sure. And do you think that this present pandemic, it has increased the acceptability of the urgent need for this?
It's created the awareness. It's definitely at some level also created an acceptance. So we just follow through with the same. Has everyone acted upon it? I don't think so. It's clearly something that comes not only with willingness, but also with resourcing and enablement. So there is a gap there, but it has also equally accentuated the problem. So while it has accelerated the journey for many on ensuring that they are using more digital learning solutions to make this more scalable, more agile, clearly so it has also accentuated the problem, because now the shelf life of skills is much reduced. Skills are churning very fast. And organizations that weren't on this journey are finding themselves very unprepared to operate in such an environment. So the pandemic for sure has acted and created a burning platform, which I think is, but I shouldn't call it a great outcome, but the pandemic has served a good cause, which is brought back urgent attention to individuals within an organization that need upskilling and reskilling, which should have always been the case. It was just treated as an island, and now I guess it's folded in centrally into the organization's agenda.
Yeah, and even as it is being brought into organizations, I think it has now become a primal urge for each one of us, the need for each one of us, and for me, it is like the stuff that I was good at, that I was known for, is probably not going to be required. Probably that thing has just gone away. And therefore, it is for me, my ability, and I look at it in three ways. I look at it that first, look out what is being needed. And this is a very pragmatic way. I'm like, just look out. Okay, what is it that's needed by the world? Okay. Then look at what is it that I have? What are the capabilities that I have, and what is my passion? All right. And now comes the third part, which I find very exciting, which is what people like you make available to people like me, is that now go out and try and bridge the gap between what is needed by the world and the stuff that we may have. And that is where, for me, that individual choice is coming back. Is it simple? No, it isn't. But who said life never promised that it's going to be simple? But at least now, Nishchae, why I'm very passionate about is that now suddenly with the democratization, I mean, somehow if I just have a little bit of a 3G or something, at least I have the possibility of reaching out and creating little more chance for me than I probably earlier had. All right. So therefore, for me at this point, I'm very, very clear that somebody like me, just look at me. I'm just talking about me. I'm 55, Nishchae Suri. All right. And over this past 6 years in my journey, where I'm taking, I'm very clearly seeing this as my the second half. And for me, second half is something which I also talk with people, is that whole lot of stuff that we wanted to do, whole lot of stuff that we really said, yeah, if we could, it is now an opportunity for us to do it. And not just an opportunity for us, but even try and learn new ways to do it. And that's what I think is the power which is available. And there comes my question to you is, you did mention about the yearning curve, the learning curve. All right. Now, how are governments reacting to this, and how are they kind of putting it all together? How are they incentivizing it?
So there are a number of governments around the world. Let me take one where we are involved at EdCast, with the government of India specifically. And this is called an initiative called Future Skills, which was launched by Prime Minister Modi himself and being led by NASSCOM, which is the National Association of Software Service Companies. Okay. Now, the agenda really was to create a global talent hub, which had digital fluency. So create a digital global talent hub and position India. So these last 2 years, we've seen great success, where we now have 350,000 people on this platform. And we've identified the 10 digital skills that are needed to create this fluency and proficiency, alongside with 10 professional skills that really make you a complete professional.
Nishchae, can you explain to me what is digital fluency? I'm sorry, I'm not aware of that.
So digital literacy, artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data, cybersecurity, what are considered to be core critical digital skills that are necessary for any organization today to succeed, right? This is the world of digital transformation. So every organization is on this journey to create this base level and foundational level of knowledge in digital. And the government said, okay, we want to create this platform. Right now it's extended to corporates, but what is coming, which was announced in December 2019, which should be launched very soon, is a citizen skilling platform. And with the same construct, wherein the government will actually incentivize every individual to upskill and reskill themselves in digital and sponsor that to a certain extent, which I think is great. And that's happening across the world, right? Be it France or Singapore. There's so many examples where the governments understand that skill development is a core lever for transformation of economies. And similar is the thinking within organizations. So it is a board-led agenda. Management teams are much more involved than they were in the past. So there is greater executive level sponsorship. There is more money available over the last 3-4 years. There is more time available now, clearly, and time was being cited as one of the big barriers to why people don't learn. I don't necessarily buy that, because what is important you make time for. Absolutely. But But that's the reality. I mean, in terms of the number of asks and the performance pressure people have, and more so the culture of learning that has been created in the past has kind of broken the spirit of the learner to
Yeah.
remain vested and remain relevant in that sense.
So here is one bit, and this interests me, that for the individual, for me as an individual, if I can hear what you are speaking, it's more and more I'm going to be, we are seeing that organizations are going to do away with a lot of people. All right. So let's face it. Now, each one of us needs employment. That's one side. The other part is each one of us has capabilities. All right. And just imagine if we can brush ourselves up or even reskill and upskill in actual things which are needed by the world. Imagine that we are actually opening ourselves up. So yesterday I was on a website called Fiverr, and you may have heard about it. And it was so interesting that you go onto it, and there are certain things which people anywhere in the world are offering, and there are a lot of websites like that. But in this particular one, as I was looking at it, I saw somebody in India, somebody in Sweden, somebody in Nicaragua. They are offering their services. Now imagine, those are individuals, all right? And they are now offering their services to anyone in the world. For me, that's a celebration. That's a celebration where I'm not looking up to just one set of people. कि भाई अगर आप काम दे दो तो बड़ा अच्छा होगा, मेरा अच्छा करो. Do something for me. This is really an opportunity for me. Education and my ability to make myself employable is it goes beyond what anybody is gifting you, but is rather a gift that each one of us can take from this new reality.
Right.
What do you say for that?
So one is to realize our innate gifts. And you spoke about let's look outside and then look inwards. I would actually reverse that slightly in the sequence. Just because I think it's first the ability to understand who I am and what my calling is and what are my gifts. Then look outwards and see, okay, how do I build on the innate gifts that I have and create a unique niche for myself. And what you've described here are people, obviously, the world is opened up to you thanks to technology. Your services are on or can be hired anywhere in the world. That's the gig world that's flourishing now. Clearly, what I do believe is, again, you need to ensure that, of course, you have a understanding of where job creation is taking place. Do you believe that you can succeed? Because you can't be one of the many. I think the aspiration is always to create a unique niche, such that you are a differentiated brand, right, amongst many. Because everybody has the same, will be working with the same game plan.
Yeah.
Question is who gets to it faster?
Yeah.
Who does a better job of ensuring that they have those requisite skills? And equally so, how well you market yourself.
How will you position yourself? Absolutely. It's
Correct,
part of the
absolutely.
story, part of the brand story.
Yeah.
And this is a very interesting one, Nishchae. Just hold you for a moment in this and consider if this level playing field is being created, where the democratization is there. Now imagine it's like an open pit mine where anyone can go and take a bit of it. Isn't this where our uniqueness, and that's where I felt that, if it is available to all or many, this is where my individual brilliance will make me stand out or not stand out.
See, it's a reset, right? So it's back to basics, and everybody's at the starting line now. The question is, I used to run a 400-meter race at school pretty well. So let me take that example. So the people who kind of break away from the pack, but yet knowingly that, it's not a 100-meter dash, it's a 400-meter race. You have to conserve your energy such that you run each section. And if I break it up into 4 sections, 100, 100, 100, 100, you have to know how to pace yourself. Equally, you have to know how to break away from the pack and ensure that you accelerate at the right time. Now, that's an important operational word.
Love
because
that.
you don't want to accelerate before
Too soon.
Direction. So, Gati and Disha, right? Disha sabse pehle, uske baad gati. And sometimes people make the mistakes of just running with the pack and not knowing where it's going and taking them. So you must spend that time that's needed. And of course, you can't be procrastinating over what you should do for 6 months.
Yeah.
That's not the point. But equally so, I think it requires a study of where the opportunities are. What is it
Yeah.
that you need to do? And then very quickly and urgently address that.
In fact, Nishchay, that example that I gave when I said first look out is that it is I who's looking out. So I'm definitely beginning with me. But
Okay, good.
this is consistently I'm looking out, looking at where is the opportunity and where do I see it diminishing and increasing. And consider when you made such a beautiful point, Gati and Disha, which is speed and direction. All right, and it's like the zone. And imagine if we have gone out in this zone, we will be recalibrating. All right,
Absolutely.
and ongoingly. So and doing it with pace and ready to maneuver. And here is one bit. In our maneuverability, can we get that this is actually present continuous? For some reason, I have felt that this settled there. Now that person is settled. Now I got a job. Now I've gotten it. There's been a finality to it. It's like stop. And therefore, learning is really a favor that you're doing to the organization or to somebody else. And I have seen that the joy, if I can see it as a present continuous, how it rolls.
Yeah, there's no space for complacency. So those that are living in that paradigm will soon find themselves in a spot where they will find it difficult to get out of. So the faster you actually realize that no longer is it to rest on your laurels of the past, B, believe that you're indispensable, C, that you do not have to continuously invest in yourself to grow your capabilities. That obviously isn't the mantra for success, right? What got you here won't get you there. So it's that realization and understanding. And the role of leadership today is to role model that behavior, is to role model that we are investing in ourselves because we believe that there is so much more to learn and so much more to learn to apply in this new world that is emerging for us.
Yeah.
And that source of inspiration is very important in an organization for people who are impressionable, for the millennials who are just coming into the workforce, to see that and understand that. And in fact, a recent study that was done, 83% of the individuals around the world said, we are willing to take the responsibility for our upskilling and reskilling. What is the message? So the message is really, so don't deny us that opportunity to exercise our choice. If you can't help in a material way, it's fine, but don't come in the way. Don't create obstacles and barriers for ourselves.
Beautiful. Now consider this, and you said about when you spoke of leadership, all right, people who inspire. Do you think that leadership also, and people who are established, people who have achieved in this period just before January, before it all set in, how much of a role model would they need to be in this period by also allowing people to learn, A, B, being someone who is also willing to learn?
Extremely important, right? The brand of learning has to be protected if it can't be built. It has to be protected because what happens in the reality, Ashish, during these times, recessionary times specifically, that your learning budgets get cut. It's treated, it's the first expenditure that usually gets axed. Now, what's the message to people within the organization during these times? That, okay, so learning isn't really as important as it was made out to be. It's something that we can actually hold off on for a period of time. And that's been done time and time and again. It's very difficult to repair a brand once its reputation has been damaged. And so during these times, right, and it's not about spending money alone. So let me not only make it about money, but it is also the environment that is,
Yeah.
and the messaging within the
What you
environment,
say is important.
and what you do.
Yep.
So
Sure.
we've all also seen this double speak a lot in organizations, wherein you continuously say something, but what the individual experience is absolutely the opposite. So
So
it's
what
important that you
effectively
walk
what
the
you're
talk.
saying, Nishchae, is that you're also being observed for what you're jettisoning in this problem. Are isko chodo, is not important right now in terms of your, not just what you're saying in terms of your action. So at this point, yes, I get that. The importance of continual learning during this period, how important that is.
Extremely important. I'm saying it again and again, that the role of leadership is to provide strategic guidance, number one, in terms of building as much clarity. Otherwise, you ought not to be a leader. That people are expecting that you will provide some level of clarity in terms of where the organization is going, what actions are to be taken, what is important. Equally so, it is about their own commitment, conviction of building that capability, right? On an ongoing basis by role modeling that they believe in it and they are the first ones to actually jump into the battlefield.
This is absolutely. I mean, like we've reached a point. It's a question that it's a bit like there's a storm, major storm. Let's throw out the extra things, or let's throw out the lifeboats or the oars. Now, imagine for me, as I see it, that no one knows what's going to come up. But imagine if there is a band, a gathering of learners who are going in, who are going to be ready to learn and be agile. You see, for me, the your ability to learn is something which is a gift that you give to yourself, so that you are continuously agile. It is not that you are learned. And therefore, imagine going into, if this entire organization or sets of people or even individuals, if we take it upon ourselves that we shall be role models for anyone around who are saying that I don't know, but I'm willing to. And that
And
I
that's
am
perfectly
willing to.
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
about, aware, then you bear yourself, then you care, and then you dare.
I love that.
So,
Be aware
uh,
and bear. Be vulnerable about it.
yeah,
Can you repeat those
get
four? I love that.
like a newborn baby. You should have the ability to get naked and
Beautiful.
care.
I get that, my
Uh,
friend.
if you care about yourself, so first you have to care about yourself before you can
Sure.
care about others,
Yep.
and treat yourself and give yourself that nourishment and build
Absolutely.
that confidence and hope and capabilities that I've talked about, and then dare, because this is obviously a period that is going to uh, be a tall order for many to
Yep.
survive in.
Yep. And I love this term when you said about taking care of yourself, nourishing yourself. And for me, this is extraordinary nourishment. When I can nourish, and we are very straight with ourselves. We don't show it to others, but we are very straight with ourselves. And most of the time, we are straight with ourselves. We are very cruel and hard on us, and because we have somehow given up on ourselves. And education and learning is something which you, at least somebody like me, can tell myself that, what I have. For example, my son is studying at Berkeley, and he uses terms which I far from me. He's studying computer science and deep learning, and it has gotten me into a thing of just taking on something to at least know what is he talking about. Now for me, I may never ever even scrape the top of that, but at least I have something which allows me to think of there are other ways other than what I thought only are. And for me, when I can add that learning to my experience, I know for a fact that there are other people looking at me, at you. And imagine this, Nishchai, this is what really excites me. That if the leadership really lets people know that it's okay not to know, as long as it is you're willing to find out, and we are there together to find out. Let's fill ourselves with new avenues, with new nooks to look at, devise new ways. And imagine when not just the organization, this country, the world is filled with people who are innovating, who are thinking afresh, who are not just following a line. and that's what excites me. And as we get into our time, and I look forward to some interesting questions. If there are any questions, please throw it up. The way, just let us know. But one thing which I really take away from this conversation with you, Nishchae, is that the Gurukul of the yore is now come home. It just needs your commitment.
It's in your hands.
Yeah, it's in your hands.
You are in the driver's seat, so your destination is in your hands.
Yeah.
The spiritual master says, right? Your thoughts create destiny.
Yeah.
So if you are a believer, if you are going in to the new reality, the new normal, with this conviction, belief that I can, and I will succeed, then in all likelihood you will reach there. And this is the greatest opportunity we have in many ways to reset, reboot, and renew ourselves.
And great. Sudipta Mandal asked a question: how much is learning effective unless the urge to learn is coming from within? To what extent does inspiration work?
So the motivation to learn has to come from within. You can't manufacture that. And that's why I've made this distinction between the habits of an everyday learner versus being forced into learning into a classroom. So you can well be forced into a classroom, mark your attendance, and come away learning nothing, having invested that time. So it doesn't create the desired impact. But any new learning must be applied.
Yeah.
Right? So even if I learn something but I don't act upon it, it doesn't again create impact. Now, what does a learner look for, specifically in terms of signs of visible progress? I just posted a few days ago on my own career map and experience. The first thing is a sign of progress. Now, that can be in different ways. One, I'm getting better pay. That's always a good signal that if you're being paid more, rewarded more, that means you're valued more and your work is
You're adding more value. Yes.
Correct. So the other is promotion. And we live in a societal construct where there is this fair amount of focus on what designation you have. And it's also an indication of level of responsibility within an organization. So I'm not taking that away if done appropriately. Equally so, it is about presence. And when I talk about presence, your equity within the organization increases because you get known, you're well connected. And I call it social cohesion, using knowledge as a medium. So your leaders know you, your peers know you much better. And then you're also well connected in the external environment. So you're forging better bonds and symbiotic relationships with people in the external environment outside of your organization.
I think so beautifully summed up, Nishchae, by you. So beautifully summed up, because at one end, overtly, it could be you're making more money, and then you also have got a nice position which is mentioned in the earlier visiting cards. And then this final point is something which is really powerful. It is what listening people have about you, because the listening that people have about you in the organization is now being spread thanks to social media. Okay, and people who are migrating from one job to the other. And consider, again, it comes back to that earlier point that you made, that not only is it important for you to learn, but also to communicate who you are as a human being. Tell your story, manage to sell yourself, whatever that you say. And just look that when people have a listening about us, that guy is good, yeah. That guy is good, or that guy is impressive, very helpful, or really knowledgeable. Now imagine that is where we are selling ourselves. All right, and for me, selling yourself becomes part of the deal when you are creating a wow through your interactions. When we create a wow, when we do our day's work, and somebody says wow, we have created a friend of our work, and that friend very soon is going to talk about us, and that is what one does. And Nishchae, I think we've stepped into that past that hour. I have had a wonderful time chatting with you, picking your brains on what learning could be and what learning can give to each one of us. It was really a very invigorating one for me, my friend.
Thank you so much, Ashish. This, I'm invited to many chats and many conferences, but this one's special. As I mentioned, number one, the theme of the discussion itself got me curious. I wasn't sure what you're going to ask me about the spirit of curiosity. It's also given me an opportunity to reflect, but equally so, share screen time with you. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much once again.
And deep appreciation, Nishchae, deep appreciation to each one of you who have been around. And there's one question I think you could, just one last, somebody is asking. Renuka has asked this question: how do we make ourselves digitally effective? Also, some more points on global leadership program in India. If we can just, as a culmination, if we can just add value to Renuka.
Well, I guess the first part of the question, how do you make yourselves digitally effective? Number one, understand what your job demands. Does it, the construct of your job will indicate to you the level of digital proficiency that you need and in which areas. So if your job requires the use of artificial intelligence, then obviously you have to equip yourself with those skills to ensure that you can undertake and carry out your job successfully. So it must be married to what you do today or what you want to do in the future. Equally so. Some more points in the global leadership program in India. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I fully understand the question.
I agree with you on this. Yeah. Can we have a look at this one? This is very, very interesting. From Akash Sinha asks, how fair is the practice of looking at creating immediate ROI out of every learning platform? I think this is going to be the final one, and then we'll wrap up.
So, number one, money is precious. So you must obviously measure the benefits that accrue out of spending that money in the area of learning. The question is, what metrics do you use to make that measurement? And ROI, for example, is the highest level of measurement that goes alongside spend and is applied to 5 to 10% strategic programs within the organization, not against all programs. You might have metrics such as reaction feedback. So what was the reaction from the audience, the cohorts that you were running the programs for? You could have metrics that relate with, was there a differential in the performance of the individuals that underwent that program? So depending upon the level of spend, depending upon the kind of program, you actually then identify metrics. The question is, yes, every dollar, every rupee spent must be made measurable. You must believe that it is creating a shift either in performance or behavior, which is the very reason that capability initiatives are undertaken within an organization.
Fantastic point. And, coming back to your thing about how the context creates everything, it's the metrics. We have to choose which metrics to put. Yes, it'll be measurable, but what metrics are we choosing? Clearly, learning is something which has really needs some broadened metrics, because it really adds value to each one of us. And so thank you, Nishchae, once again, for the extended time that we spent together at Living Forward. Thank you, each one of you who have spent time.
Happy learning to everyone.
Yes. And Nishchae and I wish each other and wish each one of you who are listening in happy learning time. See you next Sunday for another very interesting edition of Living Forward. Till then, take care, stay spirited, stay learning, and have a super duper Sunday. Thank you, Nishchae.